Hello friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. Well, I've been getting into making herbal blend kefir or kefir, however you want to say it. And I want to show you a couple of the blends that I'm making today and some other options of ones that I plan to make and that maybe you can give a try too. So let's get to it. So right here I have brewing a jar of woolly lamb's ear and marshmallow leaves and flowers from these are all from my own garden, basically tea kefir. And I just have, the reason it looks like that is because it's just one of my homemade tea bags, and I have a video on how I make my own homemade tea bags right up here. Now one way you can do this is you can brew the tea first, let it cool, and then mix it in. I'm finding I just like to put the bag right into the kefir water and then let it sit for a good day. And the last one I made, I showed in another video, whichever one that was, it turned out really good and I really like it. And so I started another one of the same kind. Now I'm going to be doing another one because now that I have enough kefir grains to make 2 quart jars at a time, and I do plan on sharing some with a friend here pretty soon, now I can do 2 different batches at the same time, which is pretty cool. So right here is the recent batch that I just of grains that I got brewing from here, and now you'll notice that the color of this keeps getting darker the more you see it. That is because I've been using more coconut sugar and less of the organic cane sugar as I get used to the flavor more. I should have done this years ago. I've been using coconut sugar for years, but I've only really just got to where I've been sort of adding it more and more, and I'm really liking it. And it's so much better for you than the cane sugar. Organic cane sugar is fine as long as you're, getting fair trade, all that kind of stuff, making sure you get the best stuff you can. Coconut sugar is better for you, and it's less sweet and higher in lots of minerals. Now this is the current jar of just plain kefir that I'm going to blend to make into a tea. So I got my clean quart jar here and my strainer to strain out the grains. Now the way I do it is I just like to strain it directly into the jar. It can be a little bit messy. It might be better to go ahead and hold it over a funnel and then strain it into the jar, but I just do it this way. And you'll see that my grains, because of the use of coconut sugar, have also been taking on a much darker color. And if you're just using cane sugar, they will turn lighter than this. So it just depends on what you're using. The coconut sugar has a much darker color anyway, and that is what's in here. Though the color's going to look a little weird because it's in a green jar. And then I'm just going to dump the grains back into this jar. And I do change the jar out every so often. But for now, I'm just going to put that back in that jar. And I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of filtered rainwater directly to that, but not too much. Now I'm going to add some filtered rainwater to this, my measuring cup here, and I'm going to put a little bit, about maybe an 1/8 cup of organic cane sugar, and then at least a 1/4 cup of the organic coconut sugar. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go put this on the wood stove and let that sugar dissolve. Alright, so now I'm going to show you back here, if you haven't seen it already, if you're new to my channel, this shelf right here Mr. Rain built for me to hold my different jars of the herbs that I like to use for making my teas. I keep adding more, so already this shelf is overflowing. I have my orange slices here. I like to use this in making the elderberry orange kefir, and you can find a video on how I do that right up here. That is the one I like to use for helping to prevent cold and flu, but I just love the flavor of it anyway, so it's a great one. Anyway, so what I have in this jar here, and by the way, these lids, I will link to them below. Just know that these are actually craft lids, but what I do with them is they're not recommended for food use, but I think plastic, even the BPA free stuff, is probably just as unsafe as this could be. But what I do is I coat the inside of it with organic beeswax. So if any food comes in contact with it, it's coated. I don't have any rusty flakes falling in there. But I just like the looks of them. It just gives a more rustic, homey look to it than having the ugly white plastic lids on there. But this right here anyway is my own homegrown herbal tea blend that is made mostly of different mints that I grow, from mojito to peppermint to spearmint, plus some dandelion flowers and lemon balm and a couple other herbs. And I have a video on that, how I do this one right up here. But that's my newest one, and that one I didn't actually have any of the dandelion flowers in that. I set aside the dandelion flowers this year for something else. But this one still does. This is from the year before. I'm still trying to work through the tea from the year before. And this is one of the blends I want to try for my kefir. Another one that I want to do at some point is the rooibos tea, and try this just by itself, and then eventually work on that. I think it will make a really great kefir. And then today's blend, as I said, is the marshmallow leaves and flowers. You can see the little light colored flowers in there. They have just a slight lavender look to them. And then the woolly lamb's ear leaves. I love these. I love the flavor of these. I have a video on woolly lamb's ear and the benefits of it, and the marshmallow too. And I will link to those either in the iCards up above or in the end cards. But just really like this stuff. Lots of great health benefits. So yeah, that's the blend I have in this jar over here that I showed you. And I think I've been having a hard time deciding which one I want to do next for this. But I think I'm going to go ahead and go with my own mint blend here. So what I do, I've got one of my little cloth tea bags here, is I'm going to take several good pinches of the herbs, my tea blend. I go by how it feels. When it feels, oh, about like that, I know that's pretty good. That's about what I want. And I'm going to stick this into my jar of the kefir I strained the grains out of. You're going to want to really push it down in there and let it soak up as much liquid into the bag and into the herbs as possible before you put you add more water to it and then put your lid on. Because what I had happen the first time was the bag was so full of air that it floated to the top and kept pushing up against the lid, and then I had kefir going out all over the counter. So try to really get it waterlogged there by getting it just really soaked, and you'll keep seeing, once you stop seeing all the air bubbles come out, you're good. Now what I got going on here is I didn't seal that up very good, so I got a lot of herbs floating to the top, but I'm really not that concerned about it because I can just strain it out. Which, you know, for that sake, I could have just tossed the herbs directly in here instead of using the bag. But at least this way I don't have to worry about getting so much out. This one, it wasn't so bad. I sealed it up better. I only had couple little herbs come out. But anyway, get as many air bubbles as you can out of it. Now, if you're going to brew the tea ahead of time, what you're going to want to do is then add it actually directly to your grains. So if you're going to do that, you got to make sure it's cooled off before you add it in, because you do not want the heat to kill off your grains. But the nice thing about that is you don't have to worry then again here about filtering out the herbs at the end of the process. But the reason I don't want to do it that way is I like to keep these just kind of in a real plain state so I can change the flavor and the herbal blend however I want with each new batch that I make. Okay, so once I feel like I've got all the air bubbles out, it's still kind of floating to the top, and it still will float to the top. At least got enough of them out that I feel comfortable going ahead and adding the water. Then, oops, I meant to do this first before I put in the tea bag. You want to put in just a really small pinch of baking soda. So that's just going to really increase the fizziness of it. I've been doing that ever since somebody recommended it. And then I like to put a good tight fitting lid on this because that is going to also help make a very, very fizzy kefir. Rather than this where it's not really airtight. So I'm going to lose some of the fizziness out of this, but since this is just the first ferment, I don't worry about it. There's that blend. I'm going to show you what I do next to go ahead and finish this out and get this one ready for the next batch. Okay, so I just took this off the wood stove. The sugars are all dissolved in the liquid. Now what I need to do is I need to let this cool down to room temperature before I add it to the grains, because I don't want to kill my kefir grains. So I will let that sit for a while. Okay, so this is all cooled down. My sugar's all dissolved in there, and now I'm going to go ahead and pour it into the jar with my grains and the other water I added. And even though typically they may not want to add your baking soda until your second ferment, I still like to put a little tiny pinch in with the first. And then I'm just going to go ahead and top it off with my filtered rainwater. And it's really important when you're working with any kind of ferment that you're not using your city tap water, because it always has chlorine in it. And even if you have to, find a good way to dechlorinate that water, because the chlorine can have an effect on your ferment, and it can slow it down or even kill it if you're not careful. And on top of that, most city water is, unless you're one of the ones that just happens to live in those places where they smartened up and took the fluoride out of the water, you really do want to avoid that fluoride. So okay, so now I have my 2 batches of the second ferment in my teas. So I got the peppermint, or the peppermint tea blend, and then I have my woolly lamb's ear and marshmallow right here. And if you don't know about the benefits of kefir, go ahead and look into that. There's a lot out there. I do have some other videos where I talk a little bit about that, but one of the biggest issues is that it's really good for helping promote good gut bacteria, which so many of us really need because we've lost it through the processed foods, the chlorinated and fluoridated water, and all this kind of stuff that's taken a toll on our bodies. So this is just one way you can get those good probiotics back into your system. Now in the future, I do plan on doing a video to break down the differences between yeast ferment, which you'll find with my my fermentation starter that I use for making kimchi and stuff. Typically kimchi is done with the old brine method that relies more on the lacto fermentation. What I have here with the kefir is a symbiotic fermentation, and then you have your acidic fermentation. So I'll be talking about those in the future and breaking them down for you so you can understand the differences. And if you're interested in more on fermenting, different forms of fermenting that I do have a playlist right up here about all of the above, and there'll be more to come on that. And also I will post a link down below to where I got my first batch of water kefir grains, and maybe in the future I'll start offering my own to sell as well for those who are interested. But Posy Mom is where I got mine, and they're great, very lively, active ones. I like them better than the first ones I got years ago they had been dehydrated and then you had to reactivate them, and they never really got super active. These ones were just right off the bat healthy, lively, and wonderful. So I highly recommend those ones. Okay, well I hope you enjoyed this video and that you learned something new. Don't forget to check out those other videos because I do have answers to other questions in many of my other fermentation videos. But don't be afraid to go ahead and ask the questions below, and I can direct you in the right way or go ahead and answer it directly. Okay, thanks for watching. Take care and God bless.